When you start a new YouTube channel, the biggest shock isn't low views. It's getting absolutely nothing at all. No impressions, no clicks, and no feedback, which makes it feel like your video never even entered the system in the first place. Most people assume this means their content is bad, so they try to improve everything at once without actually understanding what's happening. But the truth is, you're not failing yet. You're just not being tested. YouTube doesn't push videos randomly, especially from new channels with no history or data to rely on. Instead, it waits until it understands what your video is about and who it should show it to. That's where most new creators get stuck. Their videos make sense to them, but not clearly enough for the algorithm to confidently categorize and distribute. So instead of guessing, YouTube simply does nothing. No impressions, no exposure, and no chance to even see if your video performs well or not. That creates a frustrating loop. You keep uploading, hoping something will happen, but you never get the data needed to actually improve. The key mistake here is thinking you need better videos. What you actually need first is clearer videos, because clarity is what triggers testing, not effort, not consistency, and not even quality at this stage. If YouTube can't quickly understand your video, it won't risk showing it to the wrong audience. And without that first small test, your video stays invisible. That's why broad topics don't work for new channels. Saying your video is about YouTube growth is too vague and gives the algorithm nothing precise to match. Instead, you need to narrow the focus to a very specific problem, something that a small group of people are actively experiencing right now. For example, 0 impressions is a clear and specific issue. It instantly tells YouTube who might be interested in the video. Now the algorithm has direction. It can test your video with a small, relevant audience instead of ignoring it completely. That small test is everything. It's the difference between being invisible and finally entering the system. Once your video is tested, you start getting impressions. Once you get impressions, you finally get clicks, watch time, and real feedback. And only then does performance start to matter. Before that, there is nothing to optimize because nothing is happening yet. This is why so many new channels quit early. They think they're failing, when in reality they haven't even started. You're not being judged yet, you're just not being shown. And those are two completely different problems. So the goal isn't to go viral, the goal is to get your first real test. And that comes from making your content painfully clear. Clear topic, clear audience, and clear reason to click. When you do that, YouTube can finally understand where your video belongs. And once it understands, it can start testing. That's when everything changes. Not instantly, but noticeably. You go from 0 impressions to a few, from a few to consistent testing. And from there, your content finally has a chance to grow based on how people respond to it. But none of that happens if the video isn't clear enough in the first place. Clarity is the gatekeeper. So if you're stuck at 0 impressions, don't assume your content is bad. Assume it's not specific enough yet. Because once you fix that, you move out of the invisible stage. And that's where real progress begins. At this point, most creators try to do more. More videos, more effort, more ideas. But that actually makes the problem worse because it spreads your signal even thinner. What you really need is repetition of clarity. The same type of problem, the same audience, and the same positioning until YouTube starts to recognize the pattern. That's when your channel begins to form an identity. Not in your mind, but in the algorithm's understanding of your content. And once that identity starts to form, your videos don't feel random anymore. They start getting tested more consistently, even if the numbers are still small. That consistency is the real breakthrough. Because now you're no longer guessing, you're building on something that's actually working. So instead of chasing better content, focus on clearer content. Make it obvious, specific, and impossible to misunderstand. Because clarity is what gets you tested, testing is what gets you data, and data is what finally lets you grow.